I've been up here for a month. What do you want from me and why are you here?
What do you mean, what am I doing here? I came to get you.
Well, I want you gone. I am tired of all the abuse.
Since when have I abused you at all?
You dented my side and removed my internals. That's what I call abuse. Not to mention the time you used me for golf. Or trying to water cool me. Or throwing me.
Up, and away!
Ow. Or making me sit through the worst thing in history. I should have jumped.
Alright, let's just head back down. I'll give you a good cleaning, and we can just talk. Okay, at your current state, you're not exactly the best looking. I think it's time to give you a major upgrade.
Sure, I am down.
Okay, I'm about to show you what I've learned how to do through the entire time coronavirus has kept me inside.
Help. Where am I?
What was that intro? What's going on, guys? My name is Armored Rose, and thank you guys so much for stopping by. It really does, make every single video a lot more helpful, and it just makes the channel a lot better, so thank you. It's always appreciated. But enough about that. Let's get into why I decided to do this video. The reason I did this PC video was, one, it's my main PC, and two, I just felt like that, to be honest, it's a build that a lot of people would, I would recommend to a lot of people. It's a build that I would recommend for people to get if they're in this price range. So, that's kind of why I'm showing it. I did make some mistakes. I'll go over that in the parts list, and I'll go over which things that I would have changed. but without further ado, let's get into this video. Let's get into the parts, shall we? Okay, so the processor I picked for this was a Ryzen 5 3600. I picked this processor because it's a 6-core, 12-thread processor. It's Ryzen 3, and it has a base clock of 3.6 gigahertz and boost clocks up to 4.2. Not bad at all. Okay, so for the memory, I chose 16 gigabytes of G.Skill Aegis kit. It is 3000 megahertz and it is DDR4. I decided to go with that just to save a little bit extra money towards stuff like the graphics card and the CPU, but it is not a bad memory kit. Okay, so for the power supply, I picked a 500 watt Thermaltake power supply. It is 80 plus and it has a 5-year warranty. It is a great power supply for this PC, and I would even recommend getting this power supply for a more powerful PC, to be honest. It is a great purchase. Okay, so for the motherboard, I picked a Bazooka Max Wi-Fi B450 motherboard. It supports 3rd gen Ryzen, as well as having an NVMe.SSD, 4 slots for your RAM, 2 PCIe card slots, and built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Okay, so for the graphics card, I chose a Radeon RX 5500 XT, the 8GB model. Now, this card was terrible at launch, but since its launch, AMD has been putting more driver updates to it, and it has gotten significantly better since launch. It's comparable to a GTX 1660 for games that aren't really optimized for NVIDIA. I know like a lot of games are optimized for NVIDIA nowadays, but when there isn't really much of a difference, it's neck and neck pretty much. The reason I chose this card as well is because instead of something like a 590 is because this was actually less expensive than the 590 that I found at Micro Center. Also, the reason I chose this card over something like a 580 or a 590 is because it's a newer card, which means AMD cards tend to get better with age. So this card could get even better within the next year or two compared to the 590 and 580. Okay, so finally for the storage, I decided to make a bit of a dumb mistake for this. I put 2 500 gig hard drives in there. Don't do that. Get a SSD and a 2 terabyte Barracuda drive. I will promise you, it is better than any type of storage this system has. Any at all. Like, I need to get an SSD for this soon. Alright, now let's move over to my PC and show you guys the actual list on PC Part Picker so you don't have to make the mistake I made. Oh, and finally, the case of this build is a very nice Corsair case. It is a Spec Op 2 case. I really like it. But now let's go over to the computer. Okay, so this is the PC part picker list that I have open. Oh my goodness, this processor is way too much at the moment, so I definitely hold out on that. But everything else looks pretty good. Again, I put the SSD and 2 terabyte hard drive. Don't do what I did, please. Unless you have an actual reason, like I did, because you're just planning on moving files later, like literally like taking the data from your boot hard drive and then putting it to an SSD soon. Don't do what I did. I picked the same price, or a case that's in the same price range, because I can't seem to find the Corsair case that I'm using on PC Part Picker. So it comes out to $240, but plus tax most likely it's going to be $250. But anyways, let's actually get into the benchmarks. Okay, so the first game that's on our list is Watch Dogs 2. Now, the reason I chose this game is because it's still kind of demanding, but we got an average of 63 FPS at a mix of very high and ultra settings. Not bad at all. I really do enjoy the game. After that, we have CSGO with an average of 250 FPS at ultra settings. CSGO is not a very hard game to run, but I am very happy with the frame rate. You could play this on a 144 Hz monitor and still be more than fine. After that is Sea of Thieves, getting an average of 70 FPS at ultra settings. This game's gotten better since launch, and I really have enjoyed it so far. The game looks gorgeous, still to this day. So it's definitely a good game to benchmark. Next is Grand Theft Auto 5, getting an average of 85 FPS with a mix of very high and ultra settings with MSAA turned to 2 and FXAA turned to 4. After that, we have Rainbow Six Siege with everything maxed out at 150 FPS. This game is definitely more than playable, and it is very enjoyable on the system. After that is the Outer Worlds at ultra settings, clocking 65 FPS with a mix of very high settings in there for a few settings like foliage and things of the sort. After that is Quake Champions, clocking 90 FPS with everything turned up to max. I told you the reason I call this the Doomslayers because it's nuts when it comes to these games, and this game definitely does not disappoint. Doom 2016 with the Vulkan API runs at 150 FPS at maximum settings. That's nuts. And finally, for our last game that we have is Valorant, clocking at a smooth, crisp 165 FPS at maximum settings. This game is totally playable. All these games are amazing for the price. Okay, so the reason I call this PC the Doomslayer is because it was designed to play games like Doom, Quake, Wolfenstein, and as you can see by the benchmarks, it does that stellar. It's really good for the price. 1080p, ultra settings, can't go wrong with it. I would recommend saving up a little bit to put some more parts in this, especially an SSD. Don't do what I did, get an SSD. But anyways, that's going to wrap up the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and here's a little taste of what's to come in my next video. Peace out. Yep, I'm going there.